can do it.
No, you don't have to, Julian. I'll send it to someone in the commission and just to fill in a few blanks if I miss it. Because I already have notes for the meeting, so it'll be easier for me to take the minutes and then I'll send out the minutes and if someone can just fill in the blanks.
Oh,
You're all set to go.
Okay. Okay. Welcome to the March 20th meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission. My name is Bob Light, Chair. To get started, we want to review the rules for the remote meeting. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to the extending certain COVID-19 measures, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. The order allows the Historic District Commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. All members of the Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meeting on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. This meeting will not feature public comment. Each vote taken this evening will be conducted by roll call vote. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Leslie's not here. Amanda.
Here.
Okay. Brian Smith.
Aye.
Tom Reardon.
Here.
And I'm Bob Light. I'm here, and I think we'll be waiting for Millie will be joining us shortly. Okay, so again, if someone could just take notes for me, a volunteer, please. Just I will send you the minutes, and then all I need you to do is fill in some blanks.
I can take notes, Bob.
Thank you, thank you. I'll send it to you as soon as I create the minutes. So it'll be relatively complete. Just need a recording of who makes motions and seconds and things like that. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the prior minutes of the meetings?
Yeah.
Okay. Any changes, corrections? Okay, so I will send that off to the clerk. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 21st? Motion?
I wasn't present, so I abstain.
You abstain. Okay, right.
I move that we save the minutes.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll vote on the minutes acceptance. Amanda?
Aye.
Brian Smith?
Aye.
Tom Reardon?
Pass.
Abstain, and Bob Light votes yes. So the minutes are accepted. At the last meeting, I mentioned about the annual report that was submitted, and they got back to me and it was too long. So I had to cut back roughly 3/4 of a page. And it now fits on one page, so it's all set. If anyone's interested, I could send you the mock-up of how it's going to look in the annual report for the town. Actually, I will send that out to everyone.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Millie.
Hi.
Okay, Millie is here. Okay. Did you have any changes on the minutes?
I did not.
Okay, and we're all set. Okay, so again, the annual report was cut back. It's still, I think, good, and it's longer than most of the commissions. The first item on old business is the street naming bylaw. We had the there was a new, there's an issue where there is a bylaw in the town bylaws that say that new street names have to be approved by the Northborough Historic District Commission. And there's a list of approved names from I think it was roughly, I think 1982 or 1983, a list of approved names, and the names have to be somewhat historically significant, and approval has to go through Northborough. There was a new town at the select board meeting, a new street
Right.
called Harrington Lane that was voted to be accepted as a town street. It was a new development. And there was some confusion as to whether it didn't really go through the Historic District Commission, but it turned out that it was an approved name from the list. So I had called into the select board meeting to explain that it was okay, but in the future that the new names have to be run through the commission. Everyone familiar with that? It's in the town bylaws about street naming.
I know I'd seen it before, but I certainly didn't look over the approved names.
Well, I think there might have been a kind of a disconnect because it never came to us for approval. I think it was, but it turned out, I think that the developer had already looked at that list and picked Harrington, so it worked out well. It turns out Harrington was a soldier in the Civil War, and there was a Harrington in the Revolutionary War, and there was another Harrington who was a house painter, owned a house painting business in the 1800s. So one of those was historically significant. Julianne, did you have a comment?
I just want to say, first of all, it was a good reminder for us that, we should look back onto the approved list, but it was so interesting that night to hear about the history of the Harrington name. And it was, it adds a little personality to our street names. So thank you for that.
Okay, next on the agenda is the CPA project status. The library historic marker is done and delivered. It looked really good. Let's see, I delivered it to the DPW, and the DPW is going to coordinate with the library director as to the placement. I assume it's going to go on Main Street, but it's possible it might go out back by the main entrance. So we'll keep an eye out for that. So that project, as far as we're concerned, is done. Howard Street National Register status update. I just got another update. The state Massachusetts Historical Commission got back to us, got back to our consultant that was putting the documents together, Lisa Mousoff, and she's working on the response, and she says it might take her another month or two. Once it goes in, then the Mass Historical Commission has to go through the approval board and give a presentation. And Lisa will probably be invited to the presentation. I assume maybe the commission could attend as well. So I'll keep you posted about that, but that's probably not going to be for several months. And then once that is complete, that opens us up to possibility of getting some funding for upkeep of the gravestones at the Howard Street and other projects that are planned. And I think we have to wait for the National Register first in order for us to be eligible for state funding. Let's see. So I think Leslie's not here, so I don't think there's any update on the cemetery sign warping. But again, the manufacturer that installed the sign was going to have it replaced or repaired. So that's still ongoing. Next on the agenda is the small projects, the DB Wesson archives. See, Tom, did you have anything more on that?
Well, you remember Norm Corbin and I have been going out to Springfield to go through his papers, and there are dozens of boxes. And so far, we've gone through 1875 to 1883, which brought us up to the design and beginning of the construction of White Cliffs. And we've been able to uncover quite a few names of suppliers, engineers. The most important thing was confirming that Herter Brothers from New York City were responsible for the interior design and manufacture and implementation of all the tile, millwork, ceiling, painted ceilings, wallpaper, because that was their main claim to fame. Is they were one of the first total design companies, to so to speak, in the later part of the 19th century. So we're going to continue to go through the boxes, and early next year, Norm and I are going to give a little presentation to the Historic Society on what our research has uncovered and talk about the architecture.
Right. One of the great things that came out of that was the discovery of that letter from I think it was the Westboro Nursery to
Right.
DB Wesson about the
Mm.
birch tree, the purple birch. And that was a fascinating letter. I'll cover that when we get to Legacy Tree.
Yeah, there were some unusual things in his papers, like he really didn't like Roman Catholics. But we don't usually bring up the dirt, but there was quite a few letters going back and forth. Being a Roman Catholic, Irish Roman Catholic, I thought it was kind of funny.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Huh. Huh.
Okay, we won't hold that against them for now.
Right.
Okay, anything else on that?
That's it for now.
Thank you, Tom. All right, for now we'll cover committee representation updates. CPC, Leslie's not here. Millie, did you have anything on CPC? I think,
Just some of the, I don't have all those notes in front of me, sorry. But a couple of different things on some of the projects that got approved. And one of it's a 432 Whitney Street, I think, that the town is looking to purchase, which is large acreage over by where Anza Farm is.
that's Whitney Street, right?
Yeah, yeah. But that was the only change that we had at our last meeting, was some funding was moved from, I think it was conservation, into the potential purchase of that.
Okay, thank you. And while you're at it, anything on the master
yeah,
implementation plan?
We
Master
have
plan
some
implementation.
interesting things that we're talking about with the downtown revitalization. Lori Connors, town planner, has put forth a proposal to revitalize parts of Blake Street. And I think we're going to see versions of the plan tomorrow, but we've seen a few different ones in different committees that I've been in. And it's kind of exciting to see that maybe some of these things that we've been working on might actually start to be put in place. Some stones are starting to be set. So look for that. I think it could be a really exciting project on Blake Street.
Yeah.
Would certainly love to hear any feedback on that people might have, or questions. And even on that building, on that area, there are several historic buildings, but they're really not touching any of those. They're really just touching the streetscape and parking and the traffic directions.
So Sawyer's, the old tavern, is right now not going to be touched.
The buildings themselves, not so much. Some of the sidewalks and some of the streetscape
Oh,
and some
sure.
of the direction of traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else on that?
They're doing, I think they did, or I don't know if they've done it yet, but a feasibility on 4 West Main Street. Whether or not that could be something in the, you know, used for a future town hall again, or what the possibility for use of that is. I haven't heard a feedback on that. I don't know if you have anything on that, Julianne, from the board.
So my understanding is that the Town Hall Feasibility Committee looked at 4 properties that the town currently owns. The current town hall, 4 West Main, the fire station, which might be you know, might move, and White Cliffs. And the next meeting, which don't quote me on this, I think it's March 20, is it this week maybe? Is going to kind of narrow down their choices and get some cost estimates on how much each of these potential projects would cost. So it's going to be interesting, you know, to see what they recommend, particularly since this committee is, you know, so involved with White Cliffs.
Mhm.
So stay tuned, I guess, is all I can say.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and then I added a new topic under committee representation, and that would be the Northborough Revolution 250 Ad Hoc Committee.
Hmm.
That's me and Brian Smith are on that right now.
Yep.
And we had another meeting. We have a meeting, our 3rd meeting is planned for a week from Wednesday. And at the last meeting, we elected officers, and Terry Underwood of the community, no, not
Cultural affairs.
cultural affairs. I'm sorry, I always get those two mixed up. She's going to be the chair, and Norm Corbin is going to be the vice chair,
That's great.
and I'm going to be secretary.
Nice.
Okay. One of the things we discussed is that there's basically 2 types of commemoration. One will be commemoration of an event that happened around the time of the event. So, for example, these probably won't start until next year, 2025, and that's the anniversary of the 250th anniversary of the Minutemen would be one of the ones, and in 1776, or that would be 2026 would be the Declaration of Independence, and and also in 2025 would be the Knox
Cannon?
transport of cannons.
Yeah,
So those are there's some big events in that will be in 2025 and 2026. But for this year, 2024, the second type of activity will be general activity to raise awareness of the committee, get more members and more volunteers. And that's going to be through things like we're going to be writing an article for the Community Advocate, participation in Memorial Day Parade and Apple Fest. And also a information posted on Cable Access TV. And then there's one of our members, Marie Wyman, is the host of that Cable Access TV show Close to Home. And she wants to do a special show on the Revolution 250. So there's a lot of activity this year that's more or less going to lay the groundwork for more of the activity that will take place in 2025.
You guys have been busy.
Yes. And I don't think there's anything other for committee representation on other committees. Anything I missed?
Well, this is not an official topic, but I am a member of the Fire Station Building Committee.
Oh,
And
yes.
I would encourage people to watch the next few meetings because they're moving into the critical point where they're going to finalize the selection of materials for the exterior of the building, the brick, the limestone, standing seam metal roof, the windows, doors, etc. So the program is set, the building massing is pretty much resolved, the siding is completed. So now they're going into the next phase. And I think it's a really fine building. It'll probably be one of the nicest buildings in town. And it's an opportunity for us to participate in making sure that it becomes that, and it is well built and it will last to become a historic building, hopefully. But it's pretty exciting, and please tune in, and the architects are doing a fine job.
Tom, when did you say that was? I'm sorry, I missed it.
We had a meeting this morning on site. I think the next one is next week. If you go to the fire station website, they will give you the times and dates.
Okay.
So the next thing we're going to talk about are the building materials, and we're getting reports from the consulting engineers, like value engineering for like energy efficiency, geothermal, what the long range benefit would be for those kind of systems. So moving ahead.
Good.
Yeah, good.
Well, while you brought up the subject, I'm glad to hear that you're on the committee. Julianne brought something up to me about a stone wall that might have to be taken down. It's up on the hill.
There's several.
There, so it's going to go that far back. I wasn't sure. I went over there to look, and I
Well,
wasn't sure.
On the west edge of the property, adjacent to Voyatz's mall, there's the vestiges of stone walls along that western edge. And then up towards the north, I think the ones Julianne was pointing about, there's several going east-west, and there's some going north-south. So they haven't marked out the building footprint or exactly where the retaining wall will be, but the walls are not in good shape, but they are historic.
Right. So one thing is if they can't be saved, one option is for us to go to DPW, and they sometimes take the stones and rebuild them somewhere else.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of landscape contractors are always looking for field stone, so they might be able to incorporate some of it into the site design.
Right. This is a long way off, but it's if you're on the committee.
Yeah.
If I could, let me just show you something. I actually went out there and trudged through the mud. And can you see that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
Wow.
that's the stone wall in the back. That's the one that runs east and west. And this marker, do you see that marker?
Yeah.
So is that the end of the property, the end of the fire station?
No,
building?
I think that might be part of the retaining wall.
Okay, so it does look like this stone wall will be in danger then. It's up on the hill.
Well, that might not, I'd have to wait until they actually mark it out. But another thing, they are trying to relocate the 9/11 memorial that's on the corner of Church and Pleasant to
Yes.
the fire station site. And they got the approval today from the Eagle Scout who built that memorial. So that'll be a historic marker that's going to move to the site.
Mhm. I noticed also by that historic marker, and let me stop sharing here. So, can you all, okay. I noticed that has a nice little walkway and some bushes around it and everything. Is that whole thing going to be moved?
Well, that's
Or
what
just the
we have
marker?
to determine whether should we just leave the trees because they're well established and maybe move the stone and the pavers. But that's something that the landscape architects are going to be working on as part of the fire station project.
Okay, thanks. That's good to know. So we'll add that to our agenda next time. I think obviously I think it's going to be a ways before anything happens, but we'll, keep us updated on that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Even though I'm just the liaison here. Since you brought up the stone wall, what would you think about the Historic District Commission writing a letter to, maybe the select board and the fire station committee that rather than, these stones going to contractors, that they be used, if they can't be used on site, that they're used someplace else in town. Today I was at the library and that area where there were a lot of trees between the housing development and the library, that all those trees were taken down. I mean, that might be a place where you could put a stone wall or, it just seems like, um, they're New England, right? And be,
It's true. Well, hopefully, I think we still have to determine whether it's going to have to be moved, but
right.
we really want to stay on top of that.
Mhm.
It's funny because the town bylaws talk about having to preserve a stone wall if it's on a scenic byway,
Uh-huh.
and Main Street isn't. So there's nothing in the town regulations. And it's funny, there is a state regulation about removing stone walls, and
Mhm.
the fine is $10.
Yeah,
So that's not enough to discourage anyone from moving a stone wall.
Right.
Okay, that's a good point, Julianne. We'll stay on top of it, and I think a letter is a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Legacy Tree Program. This is a lot has happened since the last meeting. If you remember at the last meeting, we talked about the Legacy Tree Program, in which one of the three categories of a legacy tree, which is a Massachusetts program, was historical significant trees, such as there's a tree that was planted by Teddy Roosevelt. So, for example, that became a legacy tree. So after that meeting, I'd asked that people go around and think about possible legacy trees in town. And then it turned out that there was a presentation at CPC. Millie, what was the guy's name that gave that presentation recently from Massachusetts Historical Commission? I forgot his name.
Was it Stewart? No.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'll add it to the minutes. Anyway, he apparently visited White Cliffs and
Oh,
saw
Brian
the.
Pfeiffer. Is it Brian Pfeiffer?
No, it wasn't Brian. I'll get it later. But anyway, he visited White Cliffs and noticed the purple birch. It turns out that that's the tree that was written about in the to Daniel Wesson
Oh.
from the Westboro Nursery.
Oh, that's funny.
So we have a document now that describes him saying that the tree was delivered. It was in 1885. And he mentions in the letter that the tree was delivered the day before. So we know the exact date when it was delivered. So the person from the garden club, sorry, I mean,
Kathleen Devereaux.
Kathleen Devereux and Norm Corbin and I went and toured the grounds and noticed a tree, and it looks like a perfect candidate for the Legacy Tree Program. So one of the things is there's some concern that maybe the tree is not healthy. There might be some infestation. I didn't notice it, but I'm not a tree person. But it turns out that we checked with the Kathleen Devereux checked with the person at the Legacy Tree Program and got a statement from him. It's a Matt Cahill at DCR saying basically that there's no commitment by the owner of the legacy tree to upkeep it. They don't check it. They just obviously want to keep it on record. But if something happened where if the tree had to be taken down or whatever, that there's no prohibition. So it shouldn't affect the town. Since the town owns the tree, Julianne, we probably need some sort of official permission to nominate the tree since the town owns it. So is that something the select board would have to vote on, or?
Oh, yes, yes, and I've been having conversations about this, so I'll get back to you on.
Okay,
So,
there's no immediate rush. The next step is for us to, we have to go over there and somehow measure the tree. And there's a certain device that I don't have. I don't know if anyone else does about it. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it basically measures the angle and you use some trigonometry and you figure out the height of the tree. And I'm wondering maybe DPW has that. But if they don't, there is a way to do it with a ruler and some imagination. So we can measure the tree. We have to measure the circumference and the breadth
Yeah.
of the tree.
You could talk to somebody like Cornerstone, and they use lasers now.
Oh, okay.
And it's just downloaded automatically into their computer, so you don't have to take out your trig tables. You can have your
Good.
laptop do it.
What was the name of that?
Well, Cornerstone is a engineering company here in Northborough. Why don't I call them?
Okay, great.
You want to know the height of the birch tree.
We have to know the height, the width, the circumference. We'll have to bring a measuring
Right.
tape, and the breadth. And I think the breadth means the branches,
The spread,
how
yeah.
wide it is
Mm.
at the top. So we have to do that. It's possible. It's a big tree. I guess there's two categories. There's a legacy tree and then there's a champion tree. And the champion tree would be like the biggest birch tree ever.
Okay.
So it's possible it could be a champion tree. It is a very nice tree. We also noticed there were a couple other birches on the property. There was a birch tree by the kitchen out back, very close to the kitchen. That if there's any renovation of taking that kitchen down, that tree's probably gonna have to come down too. And then there's two other birches on the north side of the parking lot, but they're smaller and they're obviously not original Wesson trees. So, and then there was also talk in that letter about several maples that he wanted to sell Wesson, and there's no indication that they still exist. A lot of those maples might have been down at the new housing development, which would have been torn down. So that's moving along. And once we do the measurement, submit that to the legacy tree people, then they'll give us the go ahead, and we'll of course get permission from the town. Okay. Next on the agenda briefly is signs for historic homes. It turns out that we can, within our budget, sponsor small signs for historic homes if the homeowner wants it. This program was going on in Westboro. I got in touch with the Westboro Historical Commission, and the chair of that commission wasn't aware of that program going on anymore, but he was going to check. He got back to me with the name of someone who knows how the signs were made and would give us some examples. So I need to follow up on that, but we should have an example of what the signs would look like. And then when we have an instance of writing a letter of appreciation for someone that upkeeps a historical home, we could also then offer to put a sign up on their house. Anything else on that? Anyone? I'm not sure how many times we've done that. I think in the past, it's always been the owner that has put up a sign.
Yeah,
Okay, so we can, actually, Brian, you have a sign, right?
no, the property is marked by a sign put up by I can't think of the term. But they put up the sign. It is still there.
Oh, good, okay.
It's a nice brass sign.
I think that's a nice thing to do, to acknowledge some of these houses, and it's not very expensive. It would probably be well within our budget to
Yeah.
do a few signs. Let's see. Okay, we had a request for a historic home 302 Church Street. Wanted to do some renovation to fix up the house. It is a historic home, but it's also outside of the historic district, so we had no problems with them doing the outside renovation.
Yeah.
I think it had to do with repairing a roof, and they may want to do a deck at some point.
Mm.
Is that the oldest house in Northborough?
Oh,
1711? Is it all the way out
no,
on the
no,
right?
this is 302 Church. It's near town.
Okay, so it's not way
It's,
out. The one that's for sale, Massey?
Maney,
Oh,
Maney?
no.
What is it, Maney?
I think it
I'm
is.
sorry. You're right. I'm confused.
I think it is.
No,
Is this-
302 Church is the old house. That's,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of 10 Church. So yeah,
That's
sorry.
Stone House.
Yes. Okay. Let
Hmm.
me go back. So 302 Church Street is for sale. And it's a large block of land. And I guess they want to sell off segments of the land for development. Hopefully they're not going to do anything to the house. And we're just waiting to hear. Has anyone else that by the way was the house that Leslie and Norm had visited, talked to the old owner who passed away, and then we sent a few letters to them to I think it was basically to talk about the renovation of historical homes and how to preserve historical homes. And we really haven't heard from the owners, which I believe are the heirs to the house. So now we hear that they're going to sell it, and I think we just have to keep an eye out for that. Anyone else have any information about that house?
I
No.
heard that there was 6 lots that could be carved up in the rear. I'm not positive. Asking
I wasn't sure if
2.8
it was
million.
6, but I
Yeah.
know they were going to carve it up into different
Yeah.
lots. And hopefully they won't disturb the house, but at this point, not much we can do except for a demolition delay.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I've got 2 houses on Church Street. The other one wasn't very important. It was just basically a house that wanted to do some renovation, and they were outside the historic district. Okay, next item. Let's see, Norm and Lorna and I met at the Trinity Church. And the Trinity Church was looking at funding for some renovation, restoration that they need to have done. It's a steeple work, some work on the bell, and also some handicap access additions. So there's several projects, and they're basically looking to see if there's any state funding or any other funding that they can get. So we were basically reviewing some possibilities for funding, and it came down to some of the projects are appropriate for CPC funding, CPA funding. So they'll be definitely doing that. There is the Northborough Historical, I'm sorry, the Massachusetts Historical Commission has that 50/50 funding program, which is called the excuse me. I think it's an annual funding. Yeah, anyway, I don't have the name of the program, but it's basically will fund 50% to nonprofits and municipalities that are doing historic restoration. So in order to do that, though, the property would have to be listed on the Massachusetts Historical List, not necessarily just not Macris, because it is on Macris. So that means that it would either have to be on the National Registry, which, as you can see from the Howard Street, is a process that could take 5 years. So that's not going to help them much, but that's one option. Another option that was discussed, and we don't have to get into the details right now, but the possibility of turning the church into a historic district. And by doing so, if we were able to get the approval from the town to make it a historic district, then they would be eligible for matching funds with the state.
How long would something like that take?
It would be less time than the National Registry.
Mhm.
Yeah, considerably less time.
If you remember, there was one done for the Whitney estate, which the Whitney House, which is a historic district.
Yeah.
And there was a draft done for White Cliffs, which wasn't submitted, but that was also completed. So we have those examples, and I'm thinking that could be a year period, maybe.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a lot of you obviously need permission from the owners, and that's something that we would obviously have from the church. Now, what I thought was that if they do go that route, do you remember that we had a proposal in several years ago about making downtown Main Street a historic district?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it didn't pass by a few votes. I think it was up for vote twice. So that's a fairly long process. And I think one of the issues was that some of the homeowners didn't want to be burdened by being in a historic district, because there are some restrictions, like there's demolition restrictions on changing the outside of the house. So that I don't think we should be doing, but I do think that there are several properties across the street that are contiguous, and next door, all the two Gale houses are next door, and there's a Gale house across the street. And the library, C'est la vie. But there are a few houses that would all be kind of a smaller historic district.
Mhm.
And the library, I guess, is owned by the town, so that would be a straightforward approach to get permission. And there's the old bank across the street, which is, I think, a insurance company now?
Yeah, it's wealth management, financial advice
Okay.
and consulting. Yeah.
So, so there are some other properties. So what I'd like to explore is the possibility, if we do go the route of helping Trinity Church become a historic district, that we expand it to as many houses in the area that we can, as long as they're contiguous. It doesn't have to include every house. We just have to somehow piece together a new historic map of a historic district of houses that would be willing to be in a historic district.
Hmm.
That would give us two fairly sized historic districts in town.
Yeah.
So this is very new. It's still, obviously still being worked out, but at the very least, if we don't go that route, we probably will go the route of having the Trinity Church as a historic district, as a standalone building. Yes.
So Millie and I are on Master Plan Implementation Committee, and Millie, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it seems to me that this would, be an added bonus for downtown revitalization to have a historic district. So do you wanna work through this a little more before we would bring it to master plan, if you wanted us to bring it to master plan implementation? Because it seems like those two should work together if this group really wants to move forward with that idea.
I mean, I agree with you, Julian. I think that there is a lot of alignment with what we would like to see with master plan. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to go forward with that specifically.
I guess the question is, do you want us to bring it up at a meeting, or do you want us to wait until you have more time to think about it and discuss?
When is your next meeting?
Tomorrow.
Mhm.
I think it might be good to just raise it as a outside possibility that there's talk about a historic district for the church and that there might be other properties that we can include.
Okay.
Just, and then to get a sense of the commission, is this something that we all agree with? I don't think we need to take a vote, but is there any comments one way or another?
Well, there's 3 studies being done simultaneously. There's a new town offices, downtown implementation, and then MBTA overlay district for increasing housing. And they're all looking at the same territory. And you're throwing a 4th into the mix. So I think let's get it all out there and sort it out.
I like that.
Me too.
But I don't know if these other committees are talking to each other. Because the MBTA district is incorporating one of the development parcels that the implementation committee is got its eye on. And then you've got where is the new town hall? If they're going to renovate the existing site, or they're going to go to 4 West Main Street, that's also part of the implementation committee's one of their sites. So you've got a lot of stacking of uses.
I mean, I think that's a good point, Tom. I think there is some overlap in some of the committee members, and I not 100% sure, but I think Lori Connors has a pulse on a lot of these, especially MBTA, planning board, and certainly some parts of the implementation. But I think it's a good point to bring up to say, hey, how are these all going to jive together, rather than everybody going in different directions to find out that none of it's going to work to overlap. Yeah.
I think
Rick Leaf expressed some concern at the when they presented the study of the 4 sites for possible use for town offices, that we were signaling the Blake Street area and the new old fire station for development in a different way than was being looked at as a renovation for town offices. So we might have some internal conflict with who wants to use what.
Well, getting a historic district in place would not hinder any other plans that are going on for downtown revitalization. There's nothing really that has to be done, except there is a bit of a process to write a proposal, get it to the state, get buy-in from the owners.
So it would be a nice link between the Blake Street development and the Harvey Harvey site, which is one of the possibilities for MBTA overlay district.
Right. I mean, one of the problems we had in the past with Main Street is when it becomes too big and you have too many homeowners that might object, it becomes difficult. So if for example, I'm not sure how we would incorporate, let's say, Blake Street as part of this, because it wouldn't be contiguous, because you have the gas station in between, and
It doesn't have to be contiguous, but just if you're walking the street, it's nice to go from
right.
one
So
area to the other.
when I was looking at the church, and I actually just jotted down possible buildings. So there's 49 and 43 Main Street, which is the Gale home and the Gale store, which is right next to the church.
Mhm.
the library across the street. 34 Main, the National Bank, I think is 28 Main. The Ball House is C'est La Vie. So there are, you know, and that's not a complete list, but there are other houses. But if we keep it small, get a buy-in from the owners, I think it's doable.
Yeah, and then you got the library and then Dr. Ball's house to the left was at
Mhm.
34.
Right.
It's 1730. I mean, there's quite a few.
Yeah. Gail was on both sides of the street.
Right.
Okay, good. Well, then that's something that we should explore. And I have some homework to do about that. And then, you know, anyone to help out. If anyone has any thoughts, think about it for next meeting. Okay. And then the next item is just any other issues for the commission. Just one thing is I had a demolition request form for 99 Crawford Street. And it turns out that according to the bylaws, and I reviewed this carefully, we have to approve demolition or at least have a demolition delay if the property, number one, is 100 years old. And then if it's 100 years old, then of course, if it's in Macris or if it has any other historical significance. Turns out this house is not 100 years old. So it was, to me, according to the bylaws, not applicable. So rather than sign off on it, because we'd have to go to, basically the commission would vote on it. There's nothing to vote on. It's not applicable. So I told the developer that it was basically he had to go through the building department, but it was not an issue for the Historical District Commission. Okay. And that's all I have. The other thing on the agenda was again, going through projects under Chapter 7. And I think we're just about out of time. I don't think there's anything that we can bring that up at the next meeting, but I would encourage everyone to go through the goals and objectives of Chapter 7 and see if there's anything that we're not working on that we should be working on. And volunteers are always welcome. Any other issues?
No, nothing specific.
Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to tell you one thing. The garden club, the Northborough Garden Club is celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2025. So maybe you want to invite one of them to the, you know, what are you calling the revolutionary?
Northborough Revolution 250.
Revolution 250, right. I mean, I don't know if they could do something interesting, like an interesting activity with historical plants or something, but it's coinciding, and that could be kind of, you know, mutually advantageous.
Yeah,
Sorry
no,
about the dog.
there's a lot I'm sure they can contribute to. I'm sorry. I'll talk to Kathleen. Okay. Anything else?
Well, it is March Madness, so go
Oh.
UConn.
Yeah, both my alma maters didn't quite make it. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, I have to read the list, don't I? Okay, Amanda,
Yes.
Millie,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I vote to adjourn. Thank you all very much. We'll meet next month. Oh, by the way, we're gonna have it's April, so we have to have an election of officers next week. So that'll be part of the agenda.
Okay.
Thank you
Excellent.
all.
Okay, thank
I
you all.
apologize for my dog and my noise.
Oh, Well, I had my cat here too.